want you guys to know that I filmed this already, but my face was so fucking shiny that I got a call from the ISS complaining that they were blinded by the reflection of my face, so I had to just powder it up. Hey friends, it's Hawk. Today I'm going to be doing my April wrap-up. I read 13 books in the month of April. I DNF'd 2 of them, so I don't know if I can say that I read them, but one of them I will tell you what it was and why I DNF'd it. The other one, you will have to watch my videos from the last month to figure it out. So let's start with the books that I read for videos. I will link them all above so that you can go and watch them to hear my opinions about them. For my reluctant reader that I focused on romance, I read Birthday Girl by Penelope Douglas, The Guy on the Right by Kate Stewart, and Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. For my Reading Like a 2010s Tumblr Kid video, I read The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater, Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell, The Fault in Our Stars by John Green, and The Foxhole Court by Nora Sakovic? It's right there. You know, decide amongst yourselves. Now let's move on to the other books that I read, either for the magical readathon that was happening this month or just for, you know, my own pleasure. First, I read The Bone Houses by Emily Lloyd Jones. This is about a girl who is a grave digger in her town. I don't know, her vague, you know fantasy settings, that vague European town. But the important thing is that in this town there are these things called the Bone Houses, which are basically zombies. They are reanimated corpses. So this was a very spooky book. I give it 3 stars because it had that blandness that you see in a lot of standalone YA fantasy that's just kind of prototypical of such books, kind of nondescript in the characters and the plot and everything. So, I mean, it was interesting. It was an interesting read. I was definitely spooked out at some points. I'm a huge baby, so that's not really a surprise, but I found a lot of parts of it, like, creepy. And it was interesting enough to hold my attention to make me finish it. I never was, like, thinking that I wanted to DNF it or put it down, so it was good enough to hold my attention. I liked the romantic relationship a lot more than I usually do in these YA fantasy standalones, so that's something. Usually the relationships are very just boring and blah, but I liked this one. They made sense together and they were pretty cute, so a 3-star, a solid okay. The next book that I read was Cersei by Madeline Miller. I can't believe it's taken me this long to actually read it because if you don't know, The Song of Achilles is one of my favorite books and it's also by Madeline Miller. So Cersei, if you don't know by the title, is about Cersei, who is a witch in Greek mythology. She is featured in the Odyssey. And she is kind of like one of the, I guess, most famous witches in like Western society. This book I gave 4 stars. It has Madeline Miller's beautiful writing. I love her writing style. I can never get enough of it, so that was a very enjoyable part of this novel. The problems that I had with it were more about the content. So first and foremost, the plot was, I think, really fluid, I guess is a good word to use, considering everything that Madeline Miller had to do. Because Cersei is a goddess, so she lives for thousands and thousands of years. A million things happen to her, so I can't imagine how hard it would be to string together a plot of a goddess's life. That is difficult, so I praise her for the fluidity of it. It just moved from one event to another with, you know, grace, and it wasn't clunky or anything, so I appreciated that about this. The problem that I had was that I felt like this focused too much on her romantic relationships. Cersei has 4 main romantic relationships. First and foremost, none of them are gay, which I find very difficult to believe considering she lived on an island with a bunch of nymphs, and that never happened. This book centers too much, in my opinion, around her romantic exploits, but just in general her relationship to men, which I get is important because we live in a patriarchal society and so does Cersei, and even more so, really, and it's just, I get it, what was attempted here, but it just didn't work. There was too much focus on Cersei and her relationship to these people rather than Cersei and who she was in herself. Even with her son, she has a son in the book, and like too much focus is given to that even. Obviously, you know, motherhood is an important part to some people of being a woman, but it just, I don't know, I think I was expecting her to be fucking Cersei, you know what I mean? Like, Cersei is supposed to be powerful, and a lot of this was like her simpering about men in her relationship to men, and if her son was gonna come home. I want Cersei to be powerful, and there was just like not enough of her being powerful in this to make me enjoy it as much as I wanted to. Again, Madeline Miller's writing, beautiful. The plot was fairly good, and I liked Cersei, but she, like, is Cersei, and it didn't feel like I was reading about Cersei. Does that make any type of sense? I hope it does. If you've read this and you feel similarly, or like understand at all what I'm saying, please let me know, because I feel like I'm only making half sense. People were acting like it was like this groundbreaking feminist novel, and I just did not see that. So let me know what your guys' thoughts were. I have a lot of feelings about it, so I would be happy to continue a discussion in the comments. The next book that I read was House of Salt and Sorrows by Erin A. Craig, right? Yes. This book came out of left field. This is a retelling of the 12 Dancing Princesses, and by golly, was it way better than I ever thought it was gonna be. I gave this book 5 stars. I can't think of ever giving a YA fantasy standalone 5 stars. I can't even conceptualize the fact that that happened. I picked this up for 2 reasons. First, Aphrodite Reads, Heather, she said that it was good. She was like trying to get everyone to read it, and I was like, okay, maybe I'll give this a shot. 2, it fit a prompt for the magical readathon, and I had it on my shelf. So I was floored by how much I liked this, especially the last 100 pages. I could not believe how into it I was. It was just unbelievable to me how much I cared about these characters, about the main character, about the plot. Like, it was just so strong to me. I was not expecting, like, the mystery element of it. And I love, you know, gods involved in folklore and fairy tales. I just think that's great, and that's an aspect of this novel. And I just, I was so into it. Like, I was so into guessing what was gonna happen next. I actually buddy read this because I was connected to someone through the Magical Readathon buddy reading system, and I was talking to her about it, and I kept like sending my guesses, and I was right. I'm not gonna say what I was right about, but I felt very accomplished. It was just so enjoyable. And I've heard a lot of people say that they didn't like the romance. I was talking to Heather about it after because I was like, can I freak out in your DMs for a second? And she was like, yes. And so I just went off. But she told me a lot of people don't enjoy the romance in this book, which I just find confusing. Because as for like YA fantasy standalones, again, like, I just feel like it was cute. Like, it was cute. And I saw someone complain too that they fell in love too fast. And again, do people not remember what it is like to be 16 or however old she is? I think she's like 17, 18. I was just like, of course they fell in love really fast. And I don't know. I just don't get it. I thought they were cute, so I was pretty pleased with that aspect of the book, but that was not by any means like the most interesting part of this book. The most interesting part of this book to me was that it just kept me guessing the entire time. I was so like into trying to figure out what was going on and trying to figure out what was real. It was just wild. So I highly, highly recommend this book if you haven't read it yet. I feel like this one kind of slipped under the radar. It certainly did for me, so please read it. It's great, I promise. The next book that I read was The Wasteland and Other Poems by T.S. Eliot. I just wanted to read some poetry this month. J. Alfred Prufrock is one of my favorite poems because it was one of the poems that got me into poetry. I just love his poetry style. I think it's great. I have nothing else to say. Read T.S. Eliot, I guess. And the last book that I actually finished this month was The Secret History by Donna Tartt. I just wanted to reread it because it's my favorite book. I don't know what else to say. I enjoyed it just as much this time as I do every other time I read it, so. And finally, I have the book that I DNF'd this month, which is Black Leopard, Red Wolf by Marlon James. Now, hold on. I don't know if anyone's gonna yell at me for this, but if you are getting ready to yell at me, please hold. It's not that I thought this book wasn't good or that it wasn't worth reading. First of all, Bible pages, if I've ever seen them. Very long book. But second of all, I just couldn't handle, it's extremely violent. Like right from the get-go, it is viscerally violent, and I just, you know, with everything that's happening in the world, I just don't want to read about that right now. Yeah, that's it. I'm gonna keep it, and I'm gonna keep it on my shelves, and I am hopefully gonna read it and give it another shot in the future because I do think that it is a worthwhile read, and a lot of my friends outside of BookTube in real life have told me that they really enjoyed this, that this is like a modern masterpiece in fantasy. I believe them and I want to read this, but I just can't do it right now. It's just a lot for me. Like, there's sexual violence, there's gang rape, there's murder, there's everything. There's every possible trigger warning you can think of. Hopefully I will get to it a different time. I'm keeping it either way, partially because of how beautiful the cover is. So that is it, my friends. Thank you so much for joining me for this month of reading. I feel like I didn't read a lot, but I also did. I feel like I didn't read that much outside of the videos that I had to do this month, but oh well, you know, sometimes that's the way the cookie crumbles. I have a lot of fun and exciting content planned for this month, so I'm very excited to share all that with you. I'm very excited to read some of the books that I'm planning on reading, so look out for that. I appreciate you guys, and I hope May is a wonderful month full of reading and whatever the fuck you want to do, okay? Bye!
New York isn't New York without you, love. So far in a few blocks to be so low.